Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending the Street Transportation Department's virtual public meeting about Osborn Road from 19th Avenue to 11th Avenue. We're excited to discuss the proposed options to restripe the current lane configuration to best meet the needs of this community. If you'd like to listen to this meeting in Spanish, we do have a Spanish translation line. Elsie will be our translator tonight. Elsie, please introduce the information in Spanish.
Of course, thank you everyone. Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Elsie Duarte y estaré brindándole el servicio de interpretación a nuestra audiencia de habla hispana. Para escuchar la reunión en español, puede llamar por favor al 602-534-1000. Ingrese el número de reunión cuando se le solicite, que es el 403-92, seguido por el símbolo de número. Encontrará esta información en el chat para su referencia. Muchas gracias por su participación. Thank you.
Thank you, Elsie. My name is Vivian Padilla, and I am a Public Information Officer with the City of Phoenix Street Transportation Department. I am your host for tonight's live virtual public meeting. On your screen, you will see a list of our project members. Please go ahead and introduce yourself as well as your relationship to the project.
Good evening, I'm Keeney Knudsen. I'm the Director of the Street Transportation Department for the City of Phoenix. Our department is responsible for putting on meetings like this and working through bike lane and street-related issues.
Good evening, my name is Brianna Velez. I'm the Assistant Street Transportation Director, and I oversee the division responsible for our active transportation program.
Hello, my name is Ruben Lawley. I'm the Deputy Director for Design and Construction Management for Street Transportation Department, and I work for Brianna to manage the active transportation program. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Bruce Littleton. I'm the Traffic Engineering Supervisor, and my responsibilities deal with the traffic signals and any electronic devices within the city.
Hello, I'm Mariel Brown. I am the project manager for this project.
Everyone, on your next screen, you will see a copy of tonight's agenda. We will begin by reviewing our goals and guidance. We will then be hosting our first audience poll, which is where we will need your participation, so please keep your eyes on the screen. We'll then review the project area and history and share with you the proposed changes. Then we'll go into another audience poll, and finally, we'll get more community perspective by answering live at the end of this meeting, answering questions and addressing any comments. I did see that there is a group of individuals hosting a watch party. We would love to get your input when we are hosting the polls, but unfortunately, you do need to be registered on your own device to participate in the poll. So I will advise those participants in the watch party to please take the survey, which is already live on our project website. And when you take the survey, please identify yourself so that we know what connection you have to this project. We would love to hear your feedback as well. And on to our next slide. This is how you can communicate with the team. First, we will be answering questions from the Spanish language line, if any. Then those who submitted pre-registered questions will have their questions answered. Then those who asked to be called on will be unmuted for 2 minutes, just so that we get through everyone's questions, because we do have a long list of interested participants who did pre-register themselves as speakers or did pre-register questions. And finally, if time permits, we will try to answer as many questions sent to us in the Q&A box. Questions go in the Q&A box, and comments can be sent to us via the chat box. And then on the next slide, you will see a screen of what your screen should look like. You can see yellow arrows pointing to red circles. Click in those areas on your own screen so that your chat box and your Q&A box will open up. And in a similar fashion, the poll will also pop up when we get to that stage. So take a moment and look at your screen and activate these sections on your own. And now that we've covered some basics, let's go ahead and get started with Keeney.
Well, good evening. It's nice to have you all joining us for this meeting. This is an important project for us. We love to be able to work with the community on different projects, and this is one. If anybody who's familiar with this topic has been around a couple different times, and we just know that we're doing our best to respond to the community. And we know in this 5th largest city in the country, With the growing population that we have, nothing is really ever static here in Phoenix. It's always dynamic and it's always changing. So we always want to make sure that we have the opportunity to be able to work through different issues or concerns or questions or requests that we get from the public, and this is one of them. And we also revisit at times as well when things have changed and when we have an opportunity to be able to look at things with a fresh set of eyes. So I know my team is going to be talking a lot more about this project and the different things we're going to be presenting to you this evening. I wanted to make sure that everybody understands that we are here to hear from you, whether that's tonight for the registered speakers and those who are talking tonight, or through the survey process and the input process that's going to follow after the meeting tonight. We want to hear from you. Your input will help guide our determination on where we go from here. And so that's the part I want to make sure is important, is that we may be up here talking about these options, but we are doing that so we can communicate that to you so you can make the best informed decision when you're giving us input about what you want to see happen on Osborn Road. So I'm going to turn it over to my team, but thank you again for being here this evening.
Thank you, Kenny, for that wonderful introduction, and thank you, Vivian, for hosting the meeting tonight. I'm Marielle Brown. I'm the project manager for this project, and I am very excited to be able to be here to talk to you about the proposals tonight. So we are looking at Osborn Road from 19th Avenue to 11th Avenue. And we are, just to be clear, looking a little bit east of, or a little bit west of 19th Avenue. The bike lanes, the existing bike lanes west of 19th Avenue end a couple hundred feet short of the intersection. So we are looking at that whole area. But before we get into the project or the proposal, we want to hear from you, the community, and how you're connected to the project. So a box will pop up in your screen, and it will tell you, it will ask you, how do you characterize your relationship to the project? So please take a moment and select the most appropriate answer. So options are A, I live near the project area. B, I use the street to commute to work or school, run errands, or access businesses or recreational activities. C, I work at or own a business in the project area. D, I am associated with a nearby school, a parent, a student, an employee, etc. Or E, other, and you can provide those details in the chat box. If you are part of the watch party, you can also kind of, ask the people that are there how they're related, and feel free to enter that in the chat box as well, so that we can hear from the watch party tonight too.
Absolutely. And Marielle, I see that there are still 12 people in progress of currently taking the poll. We do want to urge you to fill it out. We want to make sure that we get your voice into our polling results. We're going to wait a couple seconds more, and like she said, if you are over at the watch party, maybe you can supply a couple of further details in the chat box, just so that we can make sure that we take your information into tonight's polling results. So I still see about 31% of our attendees in progress of finishing this polling question. So go ahead and look for that screen that popped up. You should be able to select one of the 5 options for this poll question. So if you can't, please send us a message in the chat box and just let us know, how do you characterize your interest in this project? You live near the project area, you use the street to commute to run errands, or get to businesses or schools. You work or own a business, that's option C. Option D is that you are associated to one of the nearby schools. And option E is other, and make sure you give us some details in the chat box. So again, I still see about 29% of you in progress of completing this polling question. We will keep it up for a couple more seconds, but we do need to move along fairly soon. So go ahead and finish those polling results. And I do see that we actually got a response back from Ed over at the watch party. So thank you so much for doing that. With that, I think we will go ahead and close out the poll and give you the results.
Awesome, thank you. So thank you. I am so sorry that there is a slight technical glitch here, so I will get this back in just a second.
Alrighty, it should be showing you now. Sorry about that, everyone. WebEx is new for us in terms of the new updates, so we are trying a couple of new things tonight.
Yeah, and so with that, Vivian, it actually downloaded the poll results, but it did not share the poll results with me.
And I can go ahead and share those results with everyone. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
So 29% of people attending live near the project area. 36% use the street to commute to work or school, run errands, access business, recreational activities, etc. 11% work at or own a business in the project area. 16% are associated with a nearby school. 7% are other, and those will be in our chat box details. So thank you so much for providing that information with us.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so tonight we are kicking off the public engagement process for this proposal. So the survey, as Vivian said, is open tonight. It's already live on our website. Please take the survey. Even if you take the polls tonight, please take the survey. Share the survey with your friends and neighbors. We really want to hear from the community. As Queenie said, we're doing this to better understand what best suits the community. Once we hear back from the community, we're going to share our decision with you in summer of 2023, once we've had time to really understand what works best. And then the pavement project will happen in summer of 2024. And at that point, if the community wants any changes to the striping, that's when the striping changes would be made. And the pavement project is scheduled for summer of 2024 because there is a hawk getting built at 13th Avenue and Osborn. So there's a hawk project coming up that will help students access the school, and the construction will be starting in April of 2023 and wrapping up in March of 2024. So because of the hawk will require making changes to the street, we don't want to put the pavement treatment in until after we've let the hawk go first. So that will be the anticipated schedule. These proposals came about as part of the City of Phoenix's Complete Streets processes. Since 2017, the city has had a policy that requires us to design streets with walking, biking, transit, and driving in mind. We really do look to understand how everyone uses our streets. And the goal is to create a network of connected streets that are safe and enjoyable for everyone. For all of our pavement projects, we do this Complete Streets review to see if there are opportunities to update or change the striping to better suit the community. So for this project, or for this proposal, a pavement project was identified. Once it was planned, we looked at what changes might be possible. At that point, we go to a traffic engineering review to make sure that it really is feasible, get into the details of how wide the street is, and then also look at the congestion impacts from it. And my colleague, Bruce Littleton, will be talking about that later tonight. And then once we've kind of done our homework, we bring it to the community to share what we've seen, what the options are, what the impacts might be, and hear from the community on what would work best. As we're looking at bike lane options, we always keep in mind what types of bicyclists might be interested in using different types of bike lanes. So right now, Osborn does not have any bike lanes in this section from 19th Avenue to 11th Avenue. And what we find is that's really only the most assertive bicyclists, people who are comfortable sharing a lane of traffic, are comfortable using that. As we look at adding standard bike lanes, we see that more casual bike riders are interested in bicycling in those types of bike lanes. Someone who might already ride a bike, who enjoys riding their bike, but doesn't want to share a lane of traffic with a car. And then as we look at protected bike lanes that have buffers and vertical separation, we really see a wider variety of people who are interested in riding a bike, who might not want to be in that standard bike lane, are more interested in getting out and trying that kind of lane. And so keeping that in mind, we want to show the 4 options that we have identified for Osborn Road. So the first option, option A, is no changes. That's keeping Osborn the way it is now. So it has 2 lanes of traffic in each direction, and that would be option A. At the signalized intersection, so where there are traffic lights at 15th Avenue and 19th Avenue, the street already widens out a little bit and there are left turn lanes. So we would be keeping that same pattern. We wouldn't be changing the striping at all at 15th Avenue and 19th Avenue. And then for option B, this option would add bike lanes from 19th Avenue to 11th Avenue. And it would keep 3 lanes of traffic. So there would be 2 westbound lanes of traffic and 1 eastbound lane of traffic, along with bike lanes. And we looked at what the traffic impact would be for having 2 eastbound lanes of traffic or 2 westbound lanes of traffic, and we found that this was the one that had the least impact. My colleague Bruce will be talking about it later tonight. And then at the intersections, it would look very similar. So those left turn lanes that are already there would still be there. We would have 2 lanes of westbound driving lanes at the intersections, and we'd have 1 eastbound lane at the intersection. And there would be bike lanes. For option C, we would have 1 lane for driving in each direction, and then we would have a center left turn lane along with bike lanes. So that option would have 1 lane in both directions. It would have that center turn lane to provide space for people turning left, and there would be bike lanes as well. And then at the intersections, we would still have that 1 lane of traffic and the left turn lane. Because the street is already a little bit wider at the intersections, that gives us space to add buffers with vertical delineators at the intersections for option C. But it would only, the street's only wide enough at the intersections to do that for option C. And then for option D, this option would look at 1 lane of driving in each direction and bike lanes along with buffers and vertical delineators. So for this, if we have only 1 lane of traffic in each direction, we do have room to put in protected bike lanes. At the intersections, we would still have that left turn lane. We would have 1 lane of driving in each direction, and then bike lanes with buffers and vertical delineators at those intersections with traffic signals. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Bruce to explain what the impacts will be for traffic. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Marielle. And to get into it a little bit, there's just so much that we can do with the traffic model. And so we were able to look at what the differences were between all the options except the last one, because there's no really good way to model that. So we used an industry standard traffic model, specifically Synchro. We gathered data in advance in order to put it in the model. There were current turning movements counts taken at Osborn and 19th Ave, Osborn and 15th Ave, and it included the driveway at the school, and Osborn and 7th Ave. And I just want to point out that modeling is just an estimation of the traffic flow. It's not going to be perfect, but so we'll go through what the modeling showed for the individual models, but I want to be sure that you understand it's just an approximation of the traffic flow of where we know information. We don't know what happens at each individual driveway, and that's why we couldn't model option D, for example. Next slide. So in terms of the actual model results, we ended up with, and as I said, we can only do option A, B, and C. And essentially, the critical point is at the intersections. So if you look at the choices, the existing option A is really the existing, but optimizing the signals based on the existing conditions, based on the analysis that we had. So right now today, the average delay in the morning is 22 seconds in existing. It would be optimized to about 17 seconds for the whole intersection. and virtually the same numbers in the PM. And as you can see, the results also said that option B gave basically the same results. Option C in the morning gave the same results. Option in the afternoon, option C, had a slight degradation in the delay within acceptable terms. In terms of 15th Avenue and with the nearby and the impact of the school driveway, the existing is 20 seconds of average delay in the morning, 22 seconds in the afternoon. In an optimized condition, it's 14 and 16. Option B, there is a little additional delay in the morning, and you'll see in the model, when I'm going to show a clip of the model, and you'll see that it's the interaction between 15th Ave and the school driveway, but it's still within an acceptable level. Not as much in the evening. Option C, on the other hand, has some impact in the morning, but has a much more significant impact in the PM condition. Next slide. So how do we get this information? We also went out and actually filmed the existing conditions. It was done at the end of January, beginning of February, during school times. And so this is the existing traffic, pictures of the existing traffic that came out of the video that showed what the impacts were at the intersection and at the school. Next slide.
Bear with us a second. We are trying something new. So there we go. The screen is up and running again.
Okay, and all right. This is an actual clip right out of the model that shows what it is typically. This is really the worst condition. This doesn't represent 24 hours. It doesn't represent even 1 hour. This is just the worst condition. If you look at it, you'll see white cars. All right, for some reason, the WebEx is really slowing down the impact. Because I'm not seeing the cars moving, but in the model, the cars move. The white cars are the ones that are going to go through. The yellow ones are the ones that are going to turn at the next intersection. The blue cars are turning at the driveway or at the intersection. And so this is, and again, I want to point out this is the worst case. So while you see a backup, this is in the impact of at the school specifically. But in the modeling numbers that I gave before, that was the average delay in the peak hour. And for when the school's not there, the road obviously doesn't have anywhere near the backups, and you will have pretty much free flow conditions. You go ahead to the next slide. So that was option B, two lanes westbound, 1 lane eastbound. Option C shows 1 lane in each direction, and then because of the short distance between the 15th and the driveway, then there's a shared, the turn lane is split between the two roads, and you can see where there's still an impact from the school, and this is a little bit more than what you saw in option B. Although again, this is the worst case and not indicative of what will happen over the entire 24 hours and beyond the actual peak. And again, the average delay was what was in the figures that were given. Next. So before I hand it over to Muriel, I just wanted to mention that we were not able to do D because we can't model a single lane and where the left turns are going to occur except at the intersections. So we don't really have a good model for that. So I'll turn it back over to Marielle.
Great. Thank you, Bruce, and thank you for standing with me through that technical difficulty. So just as a review, we have talked about, we've presented 4 different options tonight. There is option A, no changes, and then there's option B, where we would have 2 westbound driving lanes, 1 eastbound driving lane, and bike lanes. And as Bruce explained, this would have a pretty small impact on the traffic as compared to what it is right now. For option C, we would have bike lanes and center turn lanes with 1 driving lane in each direction. And there would be a little bit more impact, especially around school drop pickup in the afternoon, but it would only be around school pickup in the afternoons. And then finally, for option D, we would have protected bike lanes and 1 driving lane in each direction. And as Bruce explained, we aren't able to model the impact of that because of the turning issues with driveways in our in a model, we just aren't able to model that. But we would be able to say that it would be probably a little bit more traffic congestion than option C, as people would be turning left out of those driving lanes. And so we would like to hear from you and what you would be interested in seeing for Osborn Road. So a poll will pop up on your screen. Please take a moment to fill it in. Vivian, I am seeing these. Oh, there we go. All right, so there are 4 options. Keep the current design of Osborn Road, so that's option A. Option B, update Osborn Road to 2 westbound driving lanes, 1 eastbound driving lane, and bike lanes. Option C, update Osborn Road to 1 driving lane in each direction, and bike lanes and a center turn lane. And then option D, update Osborn Road to 1 driving lane in each direction with protected bike lanes. So please take a moment to fill that in and share with us what you would like to see for Osborn. And for the watch party, if you would like to share what you are thinking or what all 10 of you are thinking in the chat box, please go ahead.
And again, we'll keep this open for a while. We might run into that funky issue we had when we did share results. So just bear with us. Like I mentioned, we are trying some new features on WebEx. I do see a couple of people saying that they are not seeing a poll. The poll is active. Several individuals have already taken it. You should have seen it pop up. It might just look like a white tab that says polling, and you do have to enlarge the tab so that it actually shows you the screen. So hopefully you can click around on your screen. It is just asking you which option works best for you. Option A, no changes. Option B, option C, and option D. If you can't see the poll, go ahead and just send us your result in the chat box, and we'll go ahead and add that to our final tabulation. I do see that only 6%, actually 4%, of those attending are in progress right now, but we have a big chunk of people, about 73%, who have not started the poll question yet. So just make sure that you do provide us with an answer, whether it be through the actual poll or maybe through the chat box. I am seeing a couple of messages of individuals saying that they are not seeing a poll, so I'm not quite sure what might be going on with that. Like I mentioned before, some have already taken it.
You know, Vivian, I was seeing the poll and it just disappeared for me as well.
Yeah, okay, so then let's just go ahead and make sure that we can, let's revisit the poll right now. So there are 4 different options. Go ahead and chat, put your response in the chat box. Option 1 is no changes. Option B, bike lanes and 3 driving lanes. Option C would be bike lanes and a center turn lane. And option D would be protected bike lanes. So we will give you guys a couple of seconds. I am seeing a lot of responses coming up in the chat box, so sorry about that. Not quite sure what is going on. But also, just as an FYI, we do have this exact same question in our survey, which is already live on our website. We don't expect you to take the survey right now, but make sure that when you do take that survey, share it with your neighbors, any parents at the school, or any of your community members. And this same question will pop up there as well. So you can take it and take your time deciding with what option you think best fits this community. So that survey is live right now on our project website, and you will have another opportunity to take it as well. And we are very interested in knowing how everyone feels about this. So we are going to go ahead and close out the poll for now, and hopefully share some of the answers that we have with everyone right now. So let me know if you can see that, Marielle.
I can.
Okay.
So it looks like we have 3 people said option A, we had 1 person for option C, and then we had 9 option D. But I do know that there were several option A's in the chat box as well, and some option C's and option D's as well. So, and someone who said option D, but option C is a close second. So it looks like we've got a wide variety of responses. Please do take the survey, and please encourage your friends and neighbors to take the survey as well. All right, and so with that, before we move into questions and comments, just as a quick reminder, the public meeting is tonight. The video of this meeting will be posted on our website in a few days. The survey is already open, and it will be open through April 16th. And once we hear from the community, we will be getting back to you in the summer of 2023, well, this summer, to share the decision, and then any changes would be made after the pavement project is done in the summer of 2024. So with that, I will hand it over to you, Vivian.
All righty. So just as a friendly reminder, you can submit your comments in the chat box. I know that is a very active chat box. Thank you so much for participating. On your screen, you will see the order in which questions will be answered. First, let's go ahead and start with the Spanish language line questions. Elsie, are there any Spanish speakers?
Not at this time.
All righty, thank you. Feel free to interrupt if any join. So let's go ahead and start with our pre-registered questions, and hopefully everyone can sit with us for a while. We do have a lot of questions. So the first one that we're tackling is, Marielle, what is the proposed timeline for this project? I know you mentioned it earlier, but what would be the proposed timeline?
Definitely. So this project would happen after the pavement project in summer of 2024. So once the Hawk at 13th and Osborn is completed, we'll be able to do the pavement. And just to be clear, because of the weather and the temperature, that pavement project will happen in the summer after the Hawk goes in the spring. And then any changes to striping would be made once we restripe the street after the pavement project.
All righty. And we have several questions focused about the schools in the area. One of the first questions is, with the road change, will there be better access to school driveways and less congestion during school drop-offs at Encanto? Another question is asking, what considerations have been made for parents picking up, dropping off children at elementary schools with entrances, exits on Osborn? And another question says, what precautions will be taken to ensure the safety of the children trying to get to school on their bikes? How will traffic be addressed at the school zones with parent pickup and drop-off cars currently causing backup on Osborn? And another similar question about student pickup and drop-off on Osborn. Someone on our team who could maybe address some of these school concerns?
I'll take the first shot, and then if others want to chime in, they can. Basically, you know, what we did with the modeling was to show you that there will be very little impact with the school, depending on the option chosen. You know, in option D, without the turn lane, will there be more backup? Yes. This is as the project is envisioned. Could there be changes as what we do at the school? That would be something that would have to come out as part of the project and meeting with the school. This is basically responding to the public request for changing the bicycle, for adding bicycle lanes in some fashion. So there was, the project did not specifically address any of the schools, other than there is the hawk going in, as Marielle mentioned, at 13th Street and Osborn to address the kids crossing to the school property at that location.
Anyone else who wants to add anything to the school questions?
I want to call out that Ed has said in the chat box that the Osborn School District is happy to work with the City of Phoenix regarding pickup and drop off. So thank you, Ed, and that's definitely a conversation we'll be continuing.
Absolutely. Moving over, we do have a couple of questions related to sidewalks, crosswalks. Will the sidewalk on the north side of Osborn be part of upgrades to ensure ADA compliance? Could we add additional crosswalks in addition to bike lanes? And finally, will there be additional hawks installed by the two schools?
So as we started looking at this project, we did get concerns about the sidewalks, and it is something that I have contacted our ADA coordinator about. This is a pavement project, and so we're really only looking at the existing pavement within the curb to curb. We're not going to, this project doesn't have the budget to look at upgrading sidewalks. We do have a street and sidewalk modernization program that can look at those things, and of course we also have our ADA program. There's also, if there's concerns about hawks, you can reach out to our traffic services team and our pedestrian safety team to look at the viability of those as well. But for this project, we're really looking at changing the stripes in conjunction with the pavement project.
And Marielle, to add to that, at 13th Street and Osborn, that entire intersection will be brought up to current standards as part of the Hawk project. And
I'll just add on to what Marielle and Bruce were saying. I think the questions that are brought up here, whether it be sidewalk improvements or crosswalks, of course, we're here just talking about this project, about potential lane reconfiguration to be able to bring in bike lanes in here and what options we have. Those other concerns about sidewalks and crosswalks, we can take those in and be able to look at those individually as well as we see those requests coming in. And obviously we have a limited amount of funding and constraints on there, but we will definitely work with the community here, as we do with communities around the entire city, on any kind of requests like those.
Alrighty, thank you, team. There are several questions revolving around safety. I'll try to address some of these. First question is, how many accidents have happened at the corner of 15th Ave and Osborn? And the second question is, again, related to wanting to know the number of accidents that have occurred along this proposed corridor.
In terms of the actual numbers, that's something we can certainly get and make available. In terms of this project, we did not look at that initially, because what we do look at is the high injury network that looks at where fatalities and injuries have occurred throughout the city, and within that network we address them. There were no areas within this project limits that were part of the high injury network.
Alrighty, and then we've got several questions. I'll try to give some of these off in groups. How many cars use the stretch of road every day compared to how many bicyclists will use the same stretch of road in a day? Traffic is already a nightmare. Why would this change even be considered, considering that traffic problems we are already having in this area, and they're claiming that there aren't users in the bike lanes? What solutions has the team come up with regarding the westbound semi-trucks that deliver products to Sprouts? How are tenants to enter some of the apartments or Phoenix College? on the north side of Osborn. How are my clients going to cross a bike lane backed up with westbound lane to turn east in the morning? Other individuals asking, why would the department consider making changes to an already congested street? I know that those are all very similar questions. I'm not quite sure if there's a specific answer for that. I do just want to make sure that the community knows that we have all of your questions. We are sort of speaking them into the record, so I'll continue with that. If the panelists see that there's a question that there's a specific answer for, please stop me. One question asks, what data specific to bike riders supports the restriction of east-west lanes along Osborn Road, especially as there are more and more people accessing Osborn for the schools and new high-density housing projects? What attempts are being made to reach neighbors instead of commuters to seek input? We did mail out postcards to the area from 7th Ave to 19th Ave, so you should have received a postcard alerting you of tonight's meeting, as well as where you can find that survey. Again, our project webpage is Phoenix.gov/streets/Osborn Road. And I think that those are, so far, some of those questions that have been brought up from individuals who are a bit concerned about traffic congestion along Osborn. Panelists, are there any sort of answers that we can provide at the moment?
I'll jump in there, Vivian. I'll just say, and it's more from a broad perspective. Obviously, in our presentation, Bruce talked about, and Mariel talked about what this project is intended to do. We also looked at the different options and what that does from a traffic delay perspective. We want to show that we've looked at and analyzed the options here and what that impact would be. Now, the bigger question is why would we do something like this? Well, obviously, we're a street transportation department. We are concerned about all modes of transportation across our city when we're talking about our streets. So where we're talking about vehicles, we're talking about trucks, we're talking about buses, we're talking about bicyclists, we're talking about pedestrians, we're talking about how anybody may interact with our streets. And so I don't want to get too philosophical in here, but I will tell you, our concern is to make sure people can get safely where they need to go to from where they're at, and using our streets to do that. If you're familiar at all with what the city of Phoenix has been doing over in the direction it's been going over the last 10 plus years, is we have passed things called the Complete Streets policy. We've also passed a bicycle master plan, which we're in the process of updating and becoming an active transportation plan. The city of Phoenix voters voted on a transportation 2050 plan that included a dramatic increase in the number of bike lane miles that were going to be installed and built across the city. And when we're building those bicycle lane miles, we have to have a safe, connected network. Think about roadways, think about our transit system. Those don't exist just in going in one straight line. They need to have a connected network so people can get from where they are to where they're going to, whether it's a vehicle, whether it's on a city bus, whether they're in a bicycle, whether they're walking or in the pedestrian environment. So you may ask, why are we looking at this? Well, one of the things about Osborn Road, it is a collector street, meaning that it is a half mile off our major arterial streets. We're on a mile grid system here in the city of Phoenix. The mile grid system is, you have Thomas, McDowell, Indian School, Camelback. Those are your mile grid systems. Those are designed to carry their heavy load of traffic. The collector system, like Osborn is in the half mile in between those mile grid systems. That is where we are more focused in on to be able to provide options for things like bicycling and enhanced transportation modes, because we can't necessarily accommodate those safely on every single arterial street. So when you ask why would we consider here Osborn? Well, we would consider Osborn as a preference to doing something on Indian School or Thomas Road. And we are under a charge. The City of Phoenix voters have said they want more bike lanes. They want to have more of a connected network for our public. So that's why we're considering it. Doesn't mean we are going to do this project. That's why we're here to talk about it tonight about this, and to be able to give an opportunity for public feedback on that. But if you want to know the reason why, is because we are trying to accommodate all modes of traffic in the street in the street transportation department and in the city of Phoenix. So we want to hear from you before we make those changes. But there are reasons why we're looking at doing this, to make sure we are not just looking at east-west streets, but also north-south streets. People may be familiar with the 3rd Street project that we just completed recently, where we were actually focusing on that. Well, 3rd Street for an example, is not 7th Street. It's not Central Avenue. It's not 7th Avenue or 16th Street. 3rd Street is one of those collector streets in between where we focused in on enhancing the bicycle experience. And I talked a lot here. I just wanted to make sure you understand the concept here, or the bigger overarching picture, why we're trying to create more safe, comfortable, connected network for our active transportation for people who are not in a vehicle.
Perfect. Thank you, Keeney. We are now moving over to another set of questions. Again, panelists, please stop me if you have an answer to provide. Is there a plan to use barriers rather than flex posts? Will intersections use make the recommended bike lane delineators?
Hey, Vivian, I can jump in on that. So we are looking at the flex post. That's our standard option right now. And I know there was a question, could we make the barriers a little bit narrower? We really have looked at every option, what's possible geometrically, and presented it today. We can't make the barriers more narrow. But in terms of the NACTO intersection, so NACTO, the National Association of City Transportation Officials, does have a number of design guidelines. It's certainly something we look at when we're designing streets. So yes, in general, our intersection designs will be looking at what NACTO has suggested in their urban bikeway design guide.
Alrighty, next question is, do protected bike lanes lead to more bicycle use of a street versus what has been a standard bike lane?
Yes. When studied, cities across the country have found that putting in protected bike lanes increases the number of bicyclists. And there have also been surveys where they've asked bicyclists, what types of bike lanes they prefer, and they do tend to prefer protected bike lanes. So there are a few different ways of looking at the question, but in general, we do see that there is more interest in a protected bike lane versus a standard bike lane.
Alrighty, next question is, are there any availability for revisions to the current options? For instance, use narrow barriers for the bike lanes to allow for an additional lane of traffic. In the survey, there is, when we ask you what option you prefer, there is another question that says, what other recommendations or ideas may you have? Go ahead and put in those ideas there. We're always willing to listen to the community, and our group of experts take a lot of different things into account. So just know that in that survey, there is a specific question that will house that answer if you have it. Another question is, why doesn't the plan allow or plan for a bike lane farther to the east to 7th Ave or 3rd Ave to connect to existing bike lanes and provide a buffer for those multifamily housing on Osborn between 11th and 3rd Avenues?
So for this project, we were really looking at the limits of the pavement project, which ends at 7th Avenue, so it wouldn't be extending into 3rd Avenue. When we did look at it, because 7th Avenue carries so much traffic, and because of the various time of day turn restrictions on 7th Avenue, we really looked at 19th Avenue to 11th Avenue to as kind of the feasible option for adding bike lanes. Bruce, do you have anything you would like to add?
Oh, and Marielle, essentially to your point, between the sevens, Osborn is an entirely different characteristic of road. Doesn't mean it can't be considered, doesn't mean it can't be looked at. But the limits of this project were specifically 15th to 19th, and because it didn't change that much character, we extended it to 11th.
Alrighty, so with that, we do have several individuals who have registered to speak, so we are going to move over to our pre-registered speakers. Go ahead, there is going to be a timer at the bottom of your screen. You will have 2 minutes. If you can ask your question in less than 2 minutes, we appreciate that. This meeting is supposed to end at 7. We will obviously host it for longer because we still have a lot of activity going on. But just know that we are giving you 2 minutes to ask your question. So we'll go ahead and get started. I know that there are several individuals that we've grouped over at the Osborn Watch Party. So we will be going to you last, just so that in hopes that we can get everyone bunched in together. So bear with me a moment. I am looking for John S. you are with us, we will go ahead and unmute you. Go ahead and ask your question to the team. You are unmuted.
Yeah, well, as I'm reading all the comments here, and my big thought is, you know, there are a handful of people that ride bikes and thousands of people in cars. Why are we giving away all that real estate for bicycles when we need it for the cars? And especially in the summer, since they added the bike lanes to 15th Avenue, I rarely see anyone on a bike, but I see the cars all backed up because now there's only one lane to get through each of the traffic signals. And it gets even crazier at the Encanto school. They really need to make some special and widen that intersection, make some special right and left turn lanes there so the people waiting to pick up their children could enter the property. Or they need to add some space in their playground or something for the cars to wait so it doesn't back up onto the street. But really, every street that I've seen transformed with bike lanes and taking away car lanes, our population is not shrinking, it keeps growing. And every time you turn around, there's a new building going up, more cars, more traffic, more pollution. We've got to do something to help that. And adding bike lanes, I appreciate the fact that people want to feel safe, but the people, you know, I grew up in this neighborhood 50 years ago. I was careful to ride my bicycle, and I think we need for people to invest, you know, in safety training for bicycle riders. But at any rate, really, again, I'll reiterate, thousands of cars versus a dozen people on a bike. It doesn't make sense to take over that real estate.
All righty. Was there a specific question that the team needs to address from Jonathan S.? Hearing none, I am moving over to John C. Let's see if you are with, I see a John, but no John C. John C., if you are with us, go ahead and chat me and I will unmute you in a bit. Actually, I see, nope, no John C. So I'll hold off. Looking for Odin. Please excuse me if I mispronounced your name. I do not see you with us, so we will skip you for now. Moving over to Roy M. Roy, you are with us. You are unmuted. You've got 2 minutes to ask your question. Go ahead.
Here. I'll be quick because I want to echo a comment that was just made. I'm a 44-year resident of the neighborhood, drive Osborn almost every day, and there are hundreds and hundreds of cars, but very few bikes. I am a bike rider, but I'm also aware that motorists pay for these roads. Bikers can ride on the sidewalk if they need to be on this road. So I think this is a very, very unwise move. And we should recognize that people do need to get where they need to go. The schools along Osborn do need to have students come and go. They're waiting, the cars are waiting on Osborn. It will be a nightmare now. So I'll cut my remarks short, but I think we need to stick with option A.
Alrighty, thank you, Roy. And I found John. Thank you for chatting me. I will unmute John unless there was something that needs to be addressed from the panelist perspective. I'll sit for a couple of seconds, and hearing none, I will move over to John. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you. Hey, John, we can hear you. Go ahead and ask your question. I think.
Well, my question is, it just seems you're trying to fix something that can't be fixed in this area with the amount of people that live in this area. I grew up here. We rode our bikes everywhere and we used the sidewalk or we used side streets when I grew up. I own the building there at 15th Avenue in Osborn, 2 buildings actually. And then when I first read everything that you had on your site, you talked about having very many commercial buildings. There's really only a dentist office and a property management across the street where I am on 15th and Osborn and my building there. And it's hard enough. I lease both those offices for my tenants to get in and out of there. I come out 17th Avenue because I own a home in the area. And sometimes it takes me 5 minutes to get out onto Osborn Road. If it's anywhere between 4 and 6 o'clock in the afternoon, I have to go side streets out to 15th Avenue and across 15th Avenue and to 13th Avenue to come out on Osborn and go east. So I think you're trying to fix something that's impossible to fix if you can't make the roads bigger. We just got 12 condos there on the south east corner that just went in, and we were wondering, those of us in this neighborhood, where the heck are these people going to go? How are they going to get in and out of there? So we've just overbuilt, and now we're putting more apartments in our area, all up and down Indian School and everything. We who live here and have lived here most of our lives, or moved back and live here, I'm looking to move out because at this point, the traffic is so horrendous and it hasn't nowhere to go. So bike lanes, I don't ride bike lanes, and I'm a bicycle rider. I don't trust people on 15th Avenue when I take a ride down there. I told my kids when they grew up, stay out of bike lanes, ride on the sidewalk. And if you're going in one direction, go where you can watch the cars coming your way, because people don't pay attention to you on bikes any more than they pay attention to motorcycle riders. So
Alrighty, John, sorry, we hit that 2-minute mark. And I think that was more of a comment than a question, so I'm not quite sure if the panelists have anything to specifically address, but thank you for sharing. We are moving over to Margaret. I am going to unmute you and go ahead and ask your question.
Phoenix Preparatory Preschool and Childcare at 7th Avenue in Osborn. My office looks out on Osborn. Yesterday, they were working on the manhole project that they were doing, and they had one lane blocked off out of the 3. And my concern is that traffic was backed up so far. We had 4 people trying to get out. It backed up a mile each direction, east and west. There was absolutely no way for anyone to get out, and everybody had to sit there for like 10 minutes before anyone was able to even move out of the parking lot here on the north side of 7th Avenue in Osborn. Now, yes, we're talking about a little further down the street, but the problem with that is that this project is going to back up our area and even past 7th Ave, which has the reverse lanes on it, so you can't really get out onto these major streets, Thomas and Indian School, because you've got reverse lanes going on. This whole thing is really challenging, and like I had just mentioned in my comment, has anybody looked at annexing the 10 feet that even when I went through permitting, I had to acknowledge 10 feet of my property belongs to City of Phoenix if they wish to open up the road any. I'm not thrilled with this idea, let alone bringing it up, but you know, if it makes it safer for everybody, we need a center lane. In an ideal world, we keep it the way it is, plus add a center lane, and that would make it a lot better. So we'll see what happens.
Alrighty, and thank you for sharing, Margaret. I did see that in a couple of times in the chat box. You said this project is expected to go all the way to 28th Street, which will affect many businesses that will have clients not being able to get in or out. Marielle, can you clarify that comment?
Definitely. So in the past, the city has looked at doing a road diet or changing the lanes, adding bike lanes on Osborn for a longer segment. But this proposal, what we're looking at today, is really just the section from 19th Avenue to 11th Avenue. That's all we're looking at. We're not looking at that larger project.
Alrighty, and moving on, Richard W., I don't see you logged in with us, so I will skip you for the moment. I'm looking for Letty A. I do not see Letty A with us. I will circle back to you. If you are here under a different name, please go ahead and chat me and I will unmute you. But for now, Letty is not with us. Christy C., I do not see you with us as well. I will circle back. Looking for Sean M. Again, I don't see Sean with us. Moving over to Susan D. I believe I saw you earlier, but you are no longer logged in with us right now, so we will skip through you for now. Again, if Richard, Letty, Christy, Sean, or Susan are under another name or via phone, go ahead and contact me and I will unmute you. Moving over to Wes, I believe you're Wesley B. You are unmuted. Go ahead and ask your question, Wes.
Just wanted to speak, and I live in the area and also cycle quite a bit and drive in the area. The congestion, there is some congestion that happens there. It's pretty minimal. It's a very short amount of time for drivers. In the meantime, it's an extremely dangerous area to cycle all day and all night. A tremendous amount of speeding. Really do support option D. The only question that I have is, have the city considered some sort of a stronger barrier than just the plastic poles? I also ride 3rd Street quite a bit. Drivers cross the plastic poles further south, and they also cross the paint constantly, even if there's cyclists in the lane. So just wanting to see if staff had considered a stronger, or either a bollard or a curb or something to protect cyclists, so that you know, we can keep drivers out of those lanes and continue to make them safe, not just for the strong riders, but for kids.
Alrighty, thanks, Wes. Someone who can answer that?
So to answer the question, we are looking at, for this project, kind of our standard product that we stock, those green vertical delineators. They offer great reflectivity, and also they won't damage cars if cars hit them. We are looking long-term at kind of what are the other options. Long-term, looking at maybe there are more tools that we can add to our toolbox. But for this project, for right now, we are looking at what we've seen be successful in other projects in Phoenix, and it's the green vertical delineators.
And I'll just build on what Marielle was answer as well. And Marielle talked about it, and we are working internally, looking at different options. And just because we may put in, you know, the green vertical delineator option initially, if that's what ends up being selected, if that's out of this process, doesn't mean we can't upgrade it at a future time. And so we're looking at, you know, ways to be able to source other types of products. We're also trying to balance that with budget as well. We're always, just want to let you know, we aren't just saying, hey, that's going to be our only option. We're looking at different options to be able to provide that protection. And not everything we can do is going to be like our 3rd Avenue two-way protected bike lanes, where we can actually use curb protection there. There are, you know, other opportunities and other products we're looking at. And but thank you for the comments.
You need to add on to that. This project, if it's done, is a year away. We don't know what we're going to find in the next year, and we're constantly looking.
All righty. Thank you, team. Moving over to Susan. You are with us. Thank you for contacting me. You are unmuted. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hello. Thank you, Vivian. Thank you for reaching out. I did not think that I had registered to speak, but I did put in a question. And my question is, if the motorist outcry becomes loud against this project, as it has in the past, I remember the last time this was proposed, will the city of Phoenix be brave and implement at least a pilot project? I understand Roy and John, and I lived in that neighborhood, and I walked my children to school at Encanto. They went to Encanto school. I understand your fear and concern as motorists, but I have worked in the field of transportation demand management for 30 years, and when you implement smart infrastructure like this, Carmageddon doesn't happen. People who can walk or bike do, and it doesn't take a 1-to-1 reduction in cars to make a big reduction in the congestion. I hope that helps. And so that's my question is, will you folks implement a pilot project to prove this one way or another? Thanks, Vivian.
I will address that. Obviously, when we're looking at the public input we receive from this, we're going to consider that, especially the comments, and work through that and making our determination. So I don't think anything's off the table when we talk about how we're going to implement this through a pilot or a full program. My intent would be to figure out what moves out of this, and if we've got a clear consensus on this or a clear direction, I don't think we need to do a pilot. We can just move forward with doing an implementation, but I don't want to presuppose how the public input's going to come back. But thank you for your comment, Suzanne.
Moving over to Nicole R. You are muted. Go ahead and ask your question. Nicole, can you hear us? You should be unmuted and you should be able to ask your question. Hello.
Okay, this is great. Going off in the chat quite differently, but I could speak more diplomatically here. One of the questions I had is an assessment with the traffic study. Did Streets Department consider and factor in what the potential bike rider ship would be with the various options, and knowing too, and I've seen the data sources that you guys utilize, you do have a really high area in here where people do not own automobiles. So not only thinking about the most vulnerable users as kids, but looking at all potential users of the bike lanes, if you factored that into the traffic study. And that's what I'll leave it at, because you did ask some of my questions earlier and answered them. Thank you.
Someone to address her question?
I mean, I don't know if related to the study, I'd have to leave it to Bruce and see if there was anything factored in there. I do know, just to let you know, when we've been implementing the Transportation 2050 program. This is now since 2016. We've been working on this. Through that, we've been actually doing regular bicycle counts. And that's in normal, typical bicycling locations like the Grand Canal picture behind me, to look at how bicycling numbers are changing over time. But we've also look at implementing those bicycle counts when we implement a project. And I would probably suggest, and I'm hearing that comment, is if we see something, if we're able to implement this or whatever comes out of this Osborn Road project, this would be a type of a project where we would potentially do those kind of counts to see what the change is over time with putting, if we go forward to the bike lane, for example, on Osborn Road, what's the change in bicycling behavior and comfort and numbers over time with something like this. But we do those kind of counts, both at specific projects, but also in major corridors where we have active transportation facilities.
And to key a little bit off of what Kenny said, in terms of the modeling, there is no way in a standard traffic model to add in what the impact would be with bikes. This was more to answer the question on congestion. And to Kenny's point, yes, this is something we can continue to look at and evaluate before or during the project.
All righty, and we are now going to hop over to, there are at least 3 individuals at the Osborn watch party, starting with Ed, Christy, and Jonathan. We're going to toss it over to Ed, and hopefully you can help facilitate that conversation. So you are unmuted, and it's under Felipe's account that I am unmuting you with. So go ahead and ask your question, Ed and Osborn friends.
Thank you so much, Vivian. I appreciate it. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. I don't want to get any feedback. Okay, looks like you can. Thank you so much. My name is Ed Hermes. I'm the president of the Osborn School District Governing Board. I'm here at the watch party up here at the Osborn School District at 1226 West Osborn Road. And we at the Osborn School District, specifically at Encanto and Clarendon, have been looking at this issue for quite some time. We convened a Encanto Clarendon Safe Routes to School committee made up of parents, community members, our principals to look at this issue. And we actually engaged with ASU College of Health Innovation to do surveys of our parents. 75% of our parents at the Encanto and Clarendon schools who live within a mile and a half of our school said they would love to walk and bike to school and love their kids to walk and bike to school, but they absolutely don't feel safe doing so because of the status quo on Osborn Road. That was the main culprit. It is extremely dangerous on Osborn Road, but both to either bike, which is essentially impossible, but also even to walk because the cars are so fast and are so close to the school and right on, essentially on top of the sidewalk, not to mention the shape of the sidewalk, which is in disrepair. During our time as a committee, when we were meeting, there were 3 crashes on Osborn Road in front of our schools, one of which The car was going so fast it jumped over the sidewalk and hit the school. Thank God there were no kids who were injured, but it is all too common for cars to be going way too fast on Osborn Road, and for our families not to feel safe. Those 75% of parents said they would love to walk and bike to school. Let's give them that opportunity. And that status quo right now doesn't do so. So I really appreciate your time and effort. From the Osborn School District side, we would love to work with you if there are issues about drop-off. I've got 2 kids at Encanto. I do the drop-off and the pickup. And I tell you what, I would love to, and my kids would love to bike to school. But right now, even though we live close to the school, it's just way too unsafe. So, and it's frankly unsafe and illegal to ride the bikes on the sidewalk, which was suggested today. So thank you so much for your time today. Look forward to being a continued partner with Phoenix Streets to make our streets safer. I'm going to pass it to some of the folks who are here who have signed up to answer a question. I think Christy Osgood, we're going to kick it to you, Christy. Go ahead and ask your question here at the watch party.
Hi, my name is Christy Osgood. I am a parent of a student at Clareton Elementary, and she was at Encanto as well. I am also the Girl Scout troop leader for our neighborhood Girl Scout troop, and I'm also a board member and treasurer of the St. Gregory Neighborhood Association. My question is in regards to, we are so grateful that Osborn has supported us in this endeavor, but we are also worried about the other schools. We're kind of forgetting about the ASU Preparatory. We're forgetting about St. Gregory, who has a very large school now, and we're also forgetting about Phoenix Christian. On top of that, we have Phoenix Community College, where one of our children also attended and biked to college and got hit by a car. So we have a lot of roots in this problem. And my question is there going to be any additional hawk lights that are going to be placed for maybe Phoenix Christian or St. Gregory on more towards the west side of Osborn? And one more point, we have bike lanes existing already on West Osborn Road, and we have bike lanes on 15th Avenue. Why won't we connect them? It just makes sense to connect all these routes. Thank you.
And next, we're going to have Jonathan Wade. Unless you want to answer the question now, we'll go ahead and have Jonathan Wade, who's here at the watch party as well, and ask his question.
I think, Ed, I'd just say I'll have to check on the future hawk plans, unless anybody on the team here can speak to that tonight, but we can definitely follow up with what our pedestrian safety group or the rest of our traffic services division is looking for when it comes to hawks in that area.
And Kenny, on that, Mary, we can certainly work with Mylan in terms of what it is, but if it does not, it's limited funding in that context. And there are a number of schools that independently made the decision to put a hawk in, and they did it through us, but they paid for it. I'm not saying the schools have to pay for it, but for the hawk that's going in, that went in on a federal aid program, and it, after many years going through that process, it got its turn. So it doesn't mean that the other schools can't, but it's a long, convoluted process.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Jonathan Wade to ask his question.
Hi, Jonathan Wade. I also live in the St. Gregory neighborhood. I understand the public safety issue of this 20-year retired MCSO. I now work for Phoenix Fire Department. So I deal with public safety issues and safety issues on the roads all the time, every day. I live directly on Osborn Road in the project area. And I'd just like to say I ride bikes all the time. So people saying in these comments that there isn't the community of bike riders around, they're wrong. But I can't safely ride in front of my own home. We can't safely. I have a child who goes to the Osborn School District who, when they walk, they're not allowed to walk down Osborn Road. They have to leave Osborn, or we have to drive our car only about 0.2 of a mile to get them to school, because it's not safe for them to walk down that street or ride their bike down there. Again, also had a child on Osborn Road hit on a bike several years ago. So that's just not possible for us to use Osborn the way it should be. And I have also had a fatal accident right in front of my house due to speeds on Osborn Road. And it's not fun to live in a neighborhood where you know you're going to have to go out, and the man was literally on fire when his car turned over, having to try and pull him out of there and help with that. And I'm haunted by that. I applaud Phoenix for doing something for the safety of its residents. Drivers will find routes. Backup will decrease after these bike lanes go in. I understand not wanting to be, to have your commute interrupted and things like that, but it's only adding a few minutes to your thing because it's a very small area of Osborn Road that we're talking about. We're talking about a half mile with 5 schools around it. Safety of our citizens and their children has to take precedence somewhere, and I applaud Phoenix for doing that. So thank you is all I wanted to say. My question that I had in the chat before was already answered, so I just wanted to make those comments, and thank you again.
Alrighty, and Ed, are there any other individuals who wanted to ask a question? Ed, can you hear us? Are there any other individuals at the watch party who had questions?
Nope, that's it. I know we're after 7, so thank you so much for your time. That's everybody that wanted to ask a question here at the watch party and who signed up.
Absolutely, and thank you for organizing that. We appreciate that. Anyone from our panelists who can tackle anything specifically that was just asked or mentioned? Hearing none, we will go ahead and move over to our next slide, which is our final slide, just so that everyone is aware. We do have the survey up on our project website. That link is Phoenix.gov/streets/Osborn Road. It is open through April 16th. It will close at 11:45 p.m. Share that with your neighbors, your colleagues, your friends who have children at the school. We do thank you for participating in tonight's live virtual public meeting. Your input on this project is incredibly important for us in order to move in the right direction for your community. So we appreciate everyone's attendance. I do want to thank everyone for participating in the chat box. Just know that we are looking at that, and we do save all of the conversations. I understand that there are several individuals who feel very passionately about this project, and your conversations in the chat box are incredibly important to us. So I do thank you for participating in that. That is the first time that we've really opened it up to the public, and we are experimenting with new features. So thank you for participating in that. We do enjoy seeing everyone's comments. Go ahead and take that survey. And if you have any questions, you can reach the project manager through email, which is bike@phoenix.gov. And with that, we will let you enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much for joining us.